Today we got a question from Josh, who has been training for about 10 months, and he is an adult green belt. For some of you guys watching this, you might be saying, what the F is a adult green belt? I thought it was for teenagers. We'll get to that in a second. But nonetheless, he's in a situation where now he's getting ready to get ready for a competition, and he wants to know, as a green belt, because most competitions will not have a green belt division for adults, should he do the white belt or the blue belt division? Because he doesn't want to be a sandbagger. He wants to compete against similarly skilled opponents who have similar skill, and so he sends the question to me. So Josh, let's jump into it. First things first, talk to your coach to be sure on everything, right? Because again, ultimately they're your coach, but I'll give you a couple ideas to chew on. And, I think I could probably answer to some of you guys that are asking what is an adult green belt, and I can answer your question, Josh, in the same thing. We'll kill two birds with one stone. So back when I was training as a white belt, I had a green belt at one point because my gym, like yours, because you went to an ATT or you're at an ATT affiliate, and I was also training at a gym that was kind of loosely affiliated with American Top Team. So when I first started, and so therefore, yeah, we had green belts too, and I got one. I remember my belt promotion ceremony, if you will. Me and my best friend, we were both white belts at the time. We're sitting on a couch, and we're at our coach's house. My coach was in the bathroom doing something, getting ready. We're getting ready to leave and travel to a tournament in North Carolina, and he just pops out the side of the window or the door and says, "Hey," throws me this belt, this green belt. He goes, "Wear that when you get to class next week." I'm holding him like, "Yeah, green belt." And my buddy looks at me. He's like, "Oh man, green belt. Yeah, congrats, dude." And that was it. I'm now a green belt. Now, my coach also told us that whenever you became a green belt, you always wanted to keep your white belt around, because when you competed, you always wanted to wear your white belt. Because basically what a green belt is it sort of accomplished two things. One, it let the coach know who the better white belts are versus who are the newer white belts. And then also, jiu-jitsu at this time especially, you can reliably say that about a year to maybe two, for getting kind of long, is going to be your belt range or your time range for a white to blue belt, right? Isn't too bad. Back in the day, it might even be longer than that. Sometimes there were people that were blue belts and stuff who were training consistently for 5-6 years. It was just, it was a little different back then. And so people coming into this new martial art jiu-jitsu that only has 5 belts compared to a lot of other martial arts that Americans are used to, where they've got 1,000,000 of them and they're getting a belt every couple of months or every month or whatever. It was one of these things to where it's kind of give them a little pat on the back midway through. Say, "Hey man, good job. You're now a green belt. So you're not a blue belt yet, but you're almost there," right? But again, blue belt is what we're after. But it was a way to kind of give them a pat on the back. And again, I don't know if this is an American thing or not, but I feel like everything operates like this. Everything gives you an award, a badge, a little pat on the back for something. Like my Audible app, I talked about this before. I got another badge on it the other day. It was "Congratulations, you've listened to this one book the whole week before noon or something." It was some stupid award. I was why do I need a badge for listening to my audiobooks? I just like listening to audiobooks. I don't need a pat on the back for it. I don't know. Anyway, side tangent. I'm getting old now. I'm starting to get curmudgeon, get off my lawn kind of stuff. But anyway, getting back to your question. So my coach would always tell us, listen, there are no adult green belt divisions. And I'll tell you guys a nasty story in just a minute too. It just kind of popped in my head. I'll tell you a nasty story about my white belt and green belt at a competition. But he would tell us, keep your white belt around, because when you go to a competition, if you show up with a green belt, they're not going to respect it. They will respect the white belt. That's what you have to have. So you would bring your white belt to tournament. So basically, we'd wear a green belt in the gym with our gym. And if we traveled to any other gym or went to competitions, we wore a white belt. And again, we didn't have stripes, so it was just a basic old white belt. Now, and I think that kind of answers your question, Josh. Wear your white belt. You're not going to be sandbagging. You'll be right where you need to be. Like at my gym, you would probably just be a 3-stripe white belt, something like that, right? You're perfectly fine where you are. So wear your white belt the next time you compete and sign up for that. Now, here's the nasty story, random story for you. So as I said, we would keep our white belts around. But the thing was, I wasn't wearing my white belt very often. Most of the time, I was wearing my green belt in training, right? So my white belt would have periods of time where it would just sit in the basement, because that was where my room was. It was just in the basement, and it would sit over in the corner, and I wouldn't mess with it. And I was getting ready to do the Arnold Classic one year. Used to be a really big jiu-jitsu tournament. It used to be the biggest tournament this side of the Mississippi. They used to give away several $1,000s of cash prizes. You would have like ADCC names. Like I remember seeing Marcelo Garcia, Shanji Ibero, Pedapano, Jeff Munson, all these big names at that particular event for the first time. And like some of them had just got done with the 80cc, right? So super big event. And so I'm getting ready to do it. Obviously, as a white belt, this is 2004. And I remember like getting all of the stuff ready. Me and my buddy Chris are getting all of our stuff ready. And then I had to go get my white belt. Well, just so happened that as the spring was rolling around, our basement had flooded a little bit. And so there had been some water that had collected where my white belt was. And so it had dried, but my white belt was funky. Oh man, it was so nasty. It was dry, but like it had this like funk that just would not leave it. Now, at the time, we were like getting ready to leave, so I didn't have time to wash it or anything like that. So I threw it in like a bag, and then we jumped in and got in the car and went, and it was terrible. We had to like stop, put it in the trunk, and then later on, we met up with another guy. Like when we were driving around Columbus, Ohio, we met up with one of my coach's buddies who had he had one of those like trucks that's got like a little short bed, and it's got like a normal like 4-door cab. And so we get in there, and I've got my stinky belt in there. We're going to get some food, and he's like, "What does that smell?" I was like, "Oh, it's my belt." He's like, "Get that in the bed of the truck. That's awful." And everybody's like gagging and stuff, so I throw it in there. And then when we get to the hotel, like we tried to wash it and dry it at the dryers there and the washers there at the hotel. Didn't work. We like soaked it in the bathtub. We were like 18, 19. So we were like using our Axe body spray, spraying it down, just anything that we could. And that only, all those other smells just sort of melded together and created this like, and created this nastier smell. Because now you have this mildewy, mold, disgusting, foul, wretched smell that's now being sort of mixed around with like 18-year-old like male body spray, right? It's very disgusting. So the day of the time, I'm having fun telling this story. I haven't told this one in a long time. Get to the tournament the next day, and we get there, and so I've got this belt wrapped up in like several like grocery bags from like one of the grocery stores to kind of keep the smell contained, and it's like sitting in my bag, and I'm waiting till they call me up. And so when they call me up, I like take this belt out of the bag and like put it around my waist, and I run it to the mat. And I remember I get there to the mat, and I'm kind of keeping my head down because I'm like, as long as the match starts, we'll be good. You know, but this belt is foul. It's nasty. And so this Brazilian ref who speaks like this much English, he's sitting there and he's like very stoic. He's just like waiting there the whole time. But then as soon as I get close to him with that belt, his face changes. And then he starts looking down, and he's like, kind of like, what is making that smell? And I was like, oh, it's my belt, you know, and he's like whatever. And then like, I'm just, I think I'd like held it up towards him or something, and he's like, no, get it away from me. Anyway, so he makes me take it off, and I put on like they had a it was like one of those white and kind of a belt to sometimes differentiate people when they have like the same color gi. I put that one on, and then I put my belt over in the corner. And then I remembered like kind of during around the match, sometimes I would look over, I'm locked up, and I would see people out of the side of my eye where they would be standing in that area where the belt was, and you would see them kind of sniff and then kind of move a little away from it. But yeah, so just a random story about my green belt, white belt phase. Hopefully you guys found that somewhat enjoyable. I think it's hilarious. It's so funny. But anyway, for your question, going back to you, Josh, compete as a white belt. You're still a white belt. By all intents and purposes, the belt, that green belt, is just mainly used at certain gyms for a particular purpose. So hopefully that helps you, brother, and I'll talk to you guys next time.